going to try to get through a lot today. I don't know how far, but we might get through Act 3, unless I get too bogged down on a couple of Hamlet soliloquies. So Act 2, Scene 2, we just left off with Ophelia coming in to Polonius and telling him how Hamlet essentially accosted her in her bedroom, took her hand, held her wrist out like this, looked at her face and sighed, and he's all unkempt and stuff. And Polonius thinks he's suffering from lovesickness. He's mad for her love because she essentially closed the door and stopped all communication with them. So he says, we're going to go see the king. Act 2, Scene 2 opens, and we have the king and queen, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and others enter. Okay? So we hear the king tell us and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern why he's called for them. Where has he called them from? Where have they been?
School.
Where? You're right, school. Nope. Germany. They're at Wittenberg with Hamlet. They're classmates of his. Okay? So, he talks about their hasty sending and says, beginning line 4, something have you heard of Hamlet's transformation? So call it. Sith, that means since, not, Star Wars Sith. Sith, nor the exterior nor the inward man resembles that it was. Okay? That's why he says, call it a transformation. Hamlet doesn't look like he used to look, and he's not acting. That is, his internal state seems to be different. Okay? What it should be, that is what the cause of this would be, more than his father's death, that thus hath put him so much from the understanding of himself I cannot dream of. Notice what he's just said about Hamlet. What it should be that has put him so much from the understanding of himself. What does he mean by that? Hamlet later on, Act 5, is going to use the first in world history insanity defense. I didn't commit murder. Why? It wasn't Hamlet. Hamlet was mad. Hamlet was not Hamlet when Hamlet killed Polonius. He's going to assert. Okay? That's what the king is getting at here. Hamlet isn't himself. Well, what did Hamlet tell us in Act 1? He's going to put on an antic disposition. He tells us that, however, when? 1, after seeing the ghost. What else is it after?
Clears his mind.
Yeah, but how does he clear his mind? You're right, Thomas. He gives us that long soliloquy that begins, that this too sullied flesh would melt thaw, resolve itself into a dew, and then what are the next 2 lines? Exactly. Doesn't that imply, pretty good by the way, doesn't that imply that Hamlet's already wrestling with some pretty deep issues? I mean, most people say that if somebody is suicidal, they're not what? They're not in their right mind. Why? What is a primal instinct for every living, sentient thing, at least? Self-preservation. And suicide goes against that. Okay? So, he says, hang out with him. Why? So by your companies to draw him on to pleasures, and to gather so much as from occasion you may glean. That is, get Hamlet to loosen up because he's wound up tighter than a clock. Get him to relax a little bit. Kind of be like Hal and Falstaff, take him to some bars and stuff. And maybe you can do what? You can gather as much as you can glean. That is, and maybe you can, figure out what's at the heart of his problem. Okay? So, the king says, and this is why Tom Stoppard, this is one of the reasons, why Tom Stoppard writes his play, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. The king says, thanks, Rosencrantz and gentle Guildenstern. And the queen says, thanks, Guildenstern and gentle Rosencrantz. Why? They're interchangeable. They don't come across as separate, distinct, round, dynamic characters. Okay? So, Polonius comes in. And Polonius says, I've got it. I found out the cause of Hamlet's lunacy. Lunacy, that's madness. Okay? King, let me hear it. Okay? So, Polonius says, you got some ambassadors first. Listen to them first. Okay? And the king then tells Gertrude, he knows what Hamlet's problem is. She says, I doubt it is no other but the main. That is, the main what? Yeah, the main problem. His father's death and our over hasty marriage. We should have waited a little while. How over hasty has this marriage been? How long has Hamlet's father been dead? At one point in the Otus to Sullied Flesh speech, he says, nay, not a month. Okay? And then later on, he's going to say, twice 2 months. So it's somewhere between, let's say, a month and 4 months. But still, dad dies within 4 months and mom marries his brother. Something shady going on there. Okay? So, Voltimand comes in, talks about the problems with Norway. That, by the way, is the former king/country that Hamlet Sr. defeated in battle. Okay? So they leave, and Polonius gets one of his great little speeches. My liege and madam, line 86, to expostulate what majesty should be, what duty is, why day is day, night, night, and time is time, or nothing but to waste night, day, and time. Therefore, since, famous quote, brevity is the soul of wit, and tediousness the limbs and outward flourishes, I will be brief. Has he been brief so far? No, the guy loves to hear his voice. Your noble son is mad. Mad call I it, for to define true madness, what is it but to be nothing else but mad? But let that go. More matter with less art. What's Gertrude saying? Get to the point. More matter, more meat, more essence, more substance. Drop all the rhetoric. Okay? He says, I'm not using any art. That is mad, 'tis true, 'tis pity. Right? Should you be angry at a mad person? At somebody who's lost their mind? No, that's something to be pitied. And pity, 'tis true, a foolish figure, but mad let us grant him. And now remains that we find out the cause of this effect. Right? Because if he's mad, something had to lead to that madness. Or rather, the cause of this defect. For thus, effect defective comes by cause. Perpend, that is, listen. I have a daughter. Well, while she's mine. Who, in her duty and obedience mark, hath given me this. And so he produces a letter. Okay? And it's from Hamlet to Ophelia. And he reads a little bit of the poetry in it. And he, plays literary critic. The king, how hath she received his love? What's Ophelia done? That is, has Ophelia been receptive to Hamlet? Well, look at Polonius's reply, though. What do you think of me? Does that answer the question? No. What is Polonius's job? Advisor to the king. Notice, by the way, just kind of hold in abeyance. His job is advisor to the king. What advice does he give his son before he leaves for France? Keep your thoughts to yourself. Give every man your ear, but no man your censure. In other words, if he were to take his own advice, he'd be out of work. What's the problem with Polonius's advice? He's a hypocrite. He doesn't do what he tells his own son to do. So, what do you think? You're a man faithful and honorable. I would fain, that is, I would like to be proven so. But what might you think when I'd seen this love hot on the wing? As I perceived it, he says, here's what I did. No, I went round to work. Almost it could be said. I don't know that I could say that, 100%, but at 95%. Of the problems of love in Shakespeare's plays revolve around what? Fathers and daughters. Fathers get in the way of daughters' love. Well, yeah. Which is why I hated what they did at the National Shakespeare Festival, because they turned Aegeus into a mother. Okay? It's fathers and daughters. Why? Because fathers, in Shakespeare's mind, apparently, have a say not only in who their daughters marry, but the family line that produces and such. Okay? So, he says, I went round to work, and my young mistress thus I did bespeak. Lord Hamlet is a prince out of thy star. This must not be. Out of thy star, remember that idea of spheres? He said, honey, he is out of your league. Yeah, he might want to have some fun, but you're not marriage material. Okay? So he says, I gave her prescripts, such as lock herself from his resort. Admit no messengers. What's he mean by messengers? This isn't like, grade school, having your best friend tell somebody you like her or something. Messengers? The love tokens, the letters, the cards. Receive no tokens, which done she did. And he fell into a madness. And thence into a fast, and thence to a watch, thence to a weakness, sadness, fast, watch, weakness, lightness, and now madness. He turns to Gertrude, the king. You think so? Might be. Notice, it may be very like. They're not sure. Polonius, he's dead sure. So he says, hath there been such a time, I would fain know that I positively said 'tis so, and it's been otherwise? That is, have I ever been wrong? Not that I know. Well, then take this from this. Other editions, not all of them, but many of them, have a stage direction. Polonius points to his head, take this from this, and then from his body. Kill me if I'm wrong. What's Shakespeare just done? Yeah, a little bit of foreshadowing there. Okay? So, the king, how may we try it further? What does he mean by try? Test. That's what the word try means. Okay? Trial is a test. Okay? It's an alchemical notion, by the way. People think, alchemy, it's all nonsense. Yeah, but a lot of our big ideas that we still use come from alchemy. Okay? So, how can we try it? Well, sometimes he walks 4 hours together here in the lobby. Now, the lobby isn't a little room like this. Go to England sometime, go to London, and go to Buckingham Palace, or, the Queen's house when she's in London, or go to Hampton Court Palace, which was Henry VIII's house, okay? Where you'll have these huge rooms, like a single room, the length of Peck Hall, and twice the width of this room. So when he walks 4 hours, Hamlet can get some miles in there if he's got his fitness tracker on. Okay? What's he doing walking for 4 hours? he's thinking. Okay? So, Polonius says, at such a time, I'll look at the verb he uses to describe what he'll do to his daughter, to Hamlet. I'll loose my daughter to him. Makes her sound like what? A dog. Why? Because you let loose your dogs. Which play is it? Loose the hounds of war in one of Shakespeare's plays. Don't know why I'm drawing a blank at that. Might be Macbeth. Okay? So, at such a time, I'll loose my daughter to him. Be you and I behind an arras then. What's an arras? Tapestry or curtain. Sometimes they cover the doors on the tiring house. Okay? Usually the doors will be open so the tapestries will be pulled aside. But if they are standing behind an arras and the arras is on the stage, where are they? They're on the stage. Okay? That doesn't mean when he says we'll be behind an arras, they walk off the stage. And where will Ophelia be? She'll be on the stage. Why? Because he's going to loose his daughter to him. And they see Hamlet come in. He's reading a book. And Polonius says, go. Why? I'll board him presently. Board is a nautical term. What does that mean? Board. Yeah. Well, get on a ship, because we think of it like you walk up a gangplank to get on a board. That's not what it means, though, here. This is a different kind of boarding. This is when two ships are getting ready to engage in battle, and maybe they've already fired their cannons. What do? They get up close to each other, and then you throw over a long board. Why? So you can run across. I mean, you've all seen Pirates of the Caribbean. And try to take control of that ship. So if he's going to board him presently, what's he thinking? I will take control of Hamlet. That is, I will control the situation. We'll see. So, the king and queen leave. Notice, by the way, he's said, I'll set Ophelia on him, and what will she do? Think of those themes I had up here last week. She's going to spy. Okay? They're going to spy from behind the arras. Now, he is spying, even though it's out in the open. What's he trying to do? Pull information. Okay? So, how does my good Lord Hamlet? Well, God of mercy. Do you know me, my lord? Excellent. Well, you are a fishmonger. Your gloss tells you fishmonger. Fish merchant. Yeah, that is what a fishmonger is, because monger means merchant. Anybody else know what the other meaning is? A pimp. Because fish was slang for prostitute, hooker, whore. That's why he was like, whoa, not I, my lord. Not only does he want to be a seller of salmon, he doesn't want to be a seller of sex either. Then I would you were so honest a man. How can a fishmonger be an honest man? Either kind. Exactly. You don't go to a fishmonger to buy veal. And you don't go to a fishmonger to buy a bicycle. You're going to ride something else, but not a bicycle. Okay? So, honest, my lord? To be honest, as this world goes, is to be one man picked out of 10,000. Shakespeare has expressed that kind of idea in other plays. Remember what Puck says about true men, faithful men? What is it, 1 in a million or 1 in 10 million? Something like that. Polonius, well, yeah, that's true. That means what? Honesty is a dying thing, a dying virtue. Okay? Hamlet, for if the sun breed maggots in a dead dog, being a good kissing carrion, have you a daughter? Okay, let's look at the first part. How does the sun breed maggots in a dead dog? Drive down a road, find some roadkill. get out and look at it. And if there's nothing there, come back the next day or a day or two later. What will you find eventually? It's going to be full of maggots. Where'd they come from? No, it was in that in the Renaissance and in the late medieval period, they thought the sun actually impregnated. Yeah, that's, I mean, but this is that the rays of the sun are creating this new life. Okay? So, if there's a dead carcass and the sun breeds maggots in it, have you a daughter? What's the connection? Well, no, it's not that he called her maggot. Hold on. I have my Lord. Let her not walk in the sun. Why? Because if she walks in the sun, she might get pregnant with what, though? Maggots. Maggots are worms. Hamlet's going to play on worms a lot throughout the rest of the play. Okay? Oh, yeah. Yeah, and foreshadowing, considering what Hamlet and the clowns are going to talk about in Act 5, Scene 1, about worms and stuff. So, let her not walk in the sun. Conception is a blessing, right? Because the psalmist and the Old Testament all say, children are a blessing. But as your daughter may conceive, Lord, look to it. In other words, the sun might knock her up, and she might breed maggots. Now, Hamlet is not coming out and explaining the correlation, but he's suggesting we. Who are the we? Me, you, and you. No others. We're the maggots. Men. Okay? It's not quite a Me Too moment, but maybe he'll get there. So, Polonius then gives an aside. Still harping on my daughter. But he didn't know me at first. Said it was a fishmonger. As far gone, that is. Bet you know what crazy. And yet, in my youth, I suffered much extremity for love. Whoa, that tells us a lot about Polonius. So, what do you read, my lord? Because Hamlet came in with a book. Words. It's like, no, dumbass. What is the matter, my lord? Notice how Hamlet interprets Polonius's words. He interprets what is the matter to mean what? What's wrong? What does Polonius mean? What's the content? That is the matter of what you're reading. I mean the matter that you read. Oh, slanders. And Hamlet gives a little speech about, old men and such. Polonius says another aside. Though this be madness, yet there is method in it. Method, organization, structure, rhetoric. If someone's crazy, they don't have that kind of organization, structure, or rhetoric. Will you walk out of the air, my lord? That is, will you walk with me outside the room and out to the balcony? Out. You need some sun, Hamlet. You need some real sunlight. I mean, you got cabin fever in here. Hamlet, into my grave. Yeah, that's out of the air, all right. Because if you're not in the air, I mean, what are only your other two options? In the ground, or I guess in water. How pregnant sometimes his replies are. Pregnant, conception, the sun, a happiness that often madness hits on, which reason and sanity could not so possibly. So he says, my lord, I will humbly I will take my leave of you. You cannot, sir, take from me anything that I will more willingly part withal. Okay, I will take my leave from you means, whether you give it or not, it's my leave. Hamlet's like, You can't take that. Why? Because you can have it. Hamlet's telling us something there. What? Yeah. Well, I mean, Hamlet's treating all this as a bit of a joke, right? Okay. But Hamlet's kind of like, get out of my face, old man. Why do you think that is? Do you think that Hamlet, big supposition here, do you think that Hamlet already knows that he is what Ophelia is going to call him later on? The most observed of all observers? He's what to the throne? Heir. If you're heir to the throne, what does that automatically put on you? Target? What else? Pressure? Why? What did Henry IV, lambast Hal for? Not acting princely. Hamlet's in a fishbowl. Everything he does, it's kind of like public record. He knows everybody's watching him. Okay? So, Hamlet leaves. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come in. And Hamlet asks them, 226, how are you? As the indifferent children of the earth. Indifferent. Your gloss. Ordinary. Neither extreme of fortune or misfortune. So if you're not at the extreme of fortune or misfortune, you're what? You're in the middle. That is, life's okay. It's not great. It's not bad. Hamlet. Guildenstern, happy in that we are not over happy on fortune's cap, we're not the very button. Why don't you want to be the very button on fortune's cap? Because the wheel keeps turning. Okay? So they use this image. Fortune has a hat, and that hat has a cap on, has a button on the top. Hamlet, nor the soles of her shoes. So you're not up here, and you're not all the way down there. Neither, my lord. Hamlet, then you live about her waist, or in the middle of her favors. Punning there. Faith, her privates we. That's where we live, around fortune's privates. Hamlet, in the secret parts of fortune, oh, most true, she is a strumpet, slut. Why? Fortune comes and goes for whom? Everybody. She's like time. Whether it moves or not, she'll sleep with it. What news? None, but the world's grown honest. Hamlet, then is doomsday near. No, come on. Why are you here? What of you, my good friends, deserved at the hands of fortune that she sent you to prison hither? Prison? Denmark's a prison. Then is the world one. Hamlet / Guildenstern / Shakespeare are building to something here. A goodly one. That is the world. Hamlet, notice, Hamlet doesn't say, no, the world's not a prison. It's just Denmark. Because I'm not king. No. Then is the world one, says Rosencrantz. Hamlet, a goodly one, in which there are many confines, wards, and dungeons. Denmark being one of the worst. What's Hamlet mean? In a prison, are all the rooms in the prison equally horrible? If you think of a prison as it is actually constructed, no. Because every prison has what, at least? It's got a place for guards to stay. It's got a place for the warden to stay. Do you think that's a hellhole? No. Okay? So Hamlet says, yeah, the world is a prison. And Denmark is one of the worst rooms. Denmark's like solitary confinement. Okay? But what does this say about life? It's not a beach. It's the other vowel. life's a bitch, and then you die. So, we think not so, my lord. Rosencrantz says, Guildenstern and I, we disagree. That is, we disagree with you. We think alike. We don't think the world and Denmark are a prison. Why then, 'tis none to you. For there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And this is where Shakespeare just kind of jumps off into the abyss of really, really deep philosophy / theology. Why? Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. How can that be true?
Your reaction kind of dictates how you feel about something.
Okay, could be. What else? Overthinking?
What line is that?
Definitely one of Hamlet's problems.
What line was that?
That was 248 or so. 249, sorry. Louder?
Is that a slam against the church?
Let me ask you to clarify, which church? Catholicism? Calvinism? Because you get both perspectives within the play. Well, go back, for example, to the New Testament. St. Paul, in one of his letters, talks about fasting. Talks about those who eat meat and those who don't eat meat. And he says, essentially, don't think ill of those who eat meat if you don't eat meat. And don't think ill of those who don't eat meat if you do think meat. Why? Because he says, for the one who thinks eating meat is bad, eating meat is bad. For the one who thinks not eating meat is bad, then not eating meat is bad. After all, even Christ says, as a man thinketh, so is he. That is, it's our thoughts that kind of do what? To an awful lot of extent, they determine how we look at the world. So, Hamlet, well, if they don't think the world is a prison, then it's not to them. Okay? To me, it is a prison. Why is it a prison to Hamlet? What does a prison do? Keeps you enclosed, you're under surveillance. It walls you off from others. Okay? You can't leave? Can Hamlet leave this prison? Or that the Almighty had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. Jean-Paul Sartre, wrote a little novel. No, or was it a play? Can't remember. No exit. You can't get out of this box. Why then, they make an assumption. Your ambition makes it one. Here's why Denmark is a prison to you, Hamlet. You want to be king. You could update that. Here's why the United States is a prison for you, Hillary. You want to be president. You could go to 2020. Pick whoever, is the nominee on the other side. If they don't win, then it's what? Okay? Why? Your thinking makes it so. 'Tis too narrow for your mind. What are they saying about Hamlet? Oh, you've got grand ideas. You what? You know where you want to go. This is like Bill Clinton at 23. I'm going to be president one day. Okay? Hamlet, please. Oh, God. I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself a king of infinite space. Period? No. Comma. Were it not that I have bad dreams. This is really deep. What's he saying? I could be bounded in a nutshell. Take a walnut. Take the meat out. Put you in it. I could be in that and think of myself as a king of what? infinite space. Okay, so maybe not a walnut, but let's make it a 3x3 cell with walls here, here, and a roof right here. Couldn't even do this. And I could count myself a king of infinite space, except for what problem? Literally. He has bad dreams. So why would the bad dreams not allow him to be king of infinite space? Where do dreams come from? Do they come from your mind? Or, in the Renaissance and medieval world, there was some debate. Or do dreams come from outside your mind? The Old English poem, The Dream of the Rood. The dreamer says, the dream that came to me. Not the dream I dreamed. The dream came to me. Okay? You'll hear people say, it seemed to me. That implies it comes from outside towards. Okay? Were it not that I have bad dreams, where do the bad dreams come from? I could count myself a king of infinite space, but these things come in. Look, think about it this way. How many of you know the story of how J.K. Rowling came up with Harry Potter? I teach a course on Harry Potter and J.R.R. Tolkien, and I used to, haven't done it for a few years. Used to teach a course in London every other year on Harry Potter. How'd she come up with that idea? Did she sit down and really think about a story? Or C.S. Lewis with the Chronicles of Narnia? Lewis had for about 15 years recurring dreams. And in these recurring dreams, he saw a fawn with an umbrella and packages in snow. And he also saw a great tawny lion. He had no idea what these things meant, what these images meant. Okay? J.K. Rowling was on a train from Manchester, England to London. She was unemployed, unwed, had a baby, on welfare, dirt poor. And 1 minute she had no idea of Harry Potter, and the next minute, an idea of a boy who discovers on his 11th birthday that his parents were murdered by the greatest dark wizard who had ever lived, and he was after him. Okay, where did it come from? This is getting at what's the source of human creativity? Where do those ideas come from? Is it the unconscious mind? Or is this idea, as the ancient Greeks kind of thought, is the idea floating around in the ether? And if it is floating around in the ether, why wasn't I on the damn train instead of her? Because she goes in 10 years from being dirt poor and penniless to being the richest woman in the world, wealthier than the queen. Why? Because she went through an idea in the ether. So, Hamlet, I have bad dreams. Which dreams indeed, see, they keep hitting at what? You want to be king. What are they supposed to be doing? Lightening them up, get some booze into them, get them to relax a little bit, and what? Gleaning. That is, not pumping him for information. They say your dreams indeed are ambition, for the very substance of the ambitious is merely the shadow of a dream. And we're back to the ideas that we talked about earlier of substance and accidents. Okay? Something's reality, its essence, and something's appearance, or appearance versus reality. So, they say, dreams indeed are ambition. which the very substance of the ambitious is what? The shadow of a dream. We're also back to Plato's world of forms. And we're back to Midsummer Night's Dream and Theseus' speech about imagination. Okay. Dreams indeed are ambition. The substance of the ambitious is merely the shadow of a dream. Does a dream have corporeality? That is stuffness, physicality. No. So how can it have a shadow? The shadow is made by light hitting an object and the form of that object falling on another object. Huh. Hamlet. A dream itself is but a shadow. So, if a dream is a shadow, that is, it's the image cast upon something, then there must be what? Something up here. And if the dream comes into his bounded nutshell, then what does that mean? Of infinite space? It's not quite infinite, right? There's got to be what? Something outside. There has to be something more. Part of what Hamlet, I think at least, is getting at is, any of you familiar with, I can't remember if this is the right name, but I think it is, Marjorie Williams? Any of you taking courses in children's lit? Famous little book written in the early 20th, late 19th century called The Velveteen Rabbit. And what question does the Velveteen Rabbit ask? What is real? What does it mean to be real? Hamlet is essentially getting at that. What is ultimately real? Because this is a shadow. So, Rosencrantz. I hold ambition of so airy and light a quality that it is but a shadow's shadow. Hamlet. Okay, I'll play your game. Then are our beggars bodies, and our monarchs and outstretched heroes, the beggars, shadows. So, beggars, Hamlet is saying, if you're right, beggars are the reality, and what are monarchs and heroes? They're the shadows of that. That's an idea Shakespeare is then going to tie back in Act 5. Why? Because he's going to say there's no difference between a beggar and a king. They all become food for worms. And we're back to, are you a fishmonger? So, let's go to the court. They go, okay. And Hamlet says, come on, why are you guys here? And he says, I'll tell you why. When Guildenstern says, okay, yeah, we were sent for. Hamlet, and here's why you were sent for. Line 296. Sheesh. I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth. Lately, I've been sad, but I don't know why. Forgone all custom of exercises. Now, that may mean I don't exercise anymore, but it may also simply mean I don't go through my daily routine, whatever that used to be. And indeed, it goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame, and that it goes so heavily with my disposition, might mean, and I put on a few pounds. That this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. Why a promontory? Why not just say a sterile desert? Because a promontory always does what? Take the opening of The Lion King. How's it begin? You got that rock that always jets out. That's a promontory. Okay? This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire, doesn't sound like a prison anymore, does it? Why, it appeareth nothing to me but a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. Like London smog or LA smog. What a piece of work is man. How noble in reason, how infinite in faculties, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god. Why like a god? Know you not that when you eat of that tree, you shall be like God? Okay? That's why. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, paragon, highest form. And yet, to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Why quintessence? The ultimate essence, from dust thou art, and to dust shalt thou return. Man delights not me. And then Shakespeare gives us a little stage direction. Because when he says, no, nor woman neither, though by your smiling you seem to say so, man delights not me, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern kind of smile. And all right, well, of course, because he's straight, and no, women. Well, we didn't think that. No, not us. Well, then why did you laugh when I said, man delights not me? Well, if you don't delight in men, then you're not going to like what? The Linton players, that is, actors have come to town. Okay? So, we skip a bunch. The actors come in. Hamlet talks with the first player. The first player does a scene that Hamlet has seen before. And they all leave. After Hamlet pulls them aside and says, if I were to give you a little speech, could you memorize it? Put it into the play? Yeah, no problem. And Hamlet gives us a soliloquy. Page 1117, Act 2, Scene 2, I don't know what line that is, around 550, I guess. Yeah. So they all leave. Hamlet, oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I. Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, okay, we've been talking, not only we, but Hamlet, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern have been talking a lot about dreams and reality. And here comes this player, and he shows Hamlet what when he enacts that little scene. What kind of actor is he? Give a modern parallel to this guy. Who's like this guy? This is an actor who can cry at the drop of a hat and who weeps as Hecuba for the death of Priam. And Hamlet's like, for Hecuba? What is Hecuba to him? Hecuba's been dead how long when Hamlet says this? Thousands of years. That is, she's what? Not real. And he can act like it was yesterday. Meanwhile, he says, I, line 566, a dull and muddy-mettled rascal, peak like John of Dreams, unpregnant of my cause, and can say nothing. No, not for a king, upon whose property most dear life a damned defeat was made. Notice, I can say nothing. Why not? Well, put it this way. What would happen if he did? He would probably get taken away somewhere what is going to happen shortly. To what use does the king put Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? They become emissaries, and they're going to take him to England for a short visit. Okay? So, Hamlet says, 571, am I a coward? Who calls me villain? Breaks my pate across, that is, smacks me upside the head. Plucks off my beard and blows it in my face. It's like flipping somebody off today. Okay? Tweaks me by the nose, gives me the lie of the throat as deep to the lung. Who does this to me? Is anybody doing this to Hamlet? Is anybody coming up to him saying, Hamlet, you coward, defend your father, revenge? No. But I am pigeon-livered and lack gall to make oppression bitter. Or before this, that is, before now, he should what? I should have fatted all the regent kites with this slave's offal. Before now when? Just before Act 3. Claudius should be dead and rotting in public. Bloody, bawdy villain. Remorseless, treacherous, lecherous, kindless villain. What an ass am I. This is most brave, that I, the son of a dear father murdered, prompted to my revenge by heaven and hell. We could maybe stop and say, Hamlet, let's quibble on that a little bit. Where does heaven ever prompt anyone to revenge? Because you have that one little verse, vengeance is mine, thus saith the Lord. You leave everybody, I'll take care of it. I must like a whore unpack my heart with words and fall a cursing like a very drab. Fie upon it, foe, about my brains. What's Hamlet showing us in this soliloquy? Is he keeping it all together? No. Is Hamlet really on the border of madness? That's, the $64,000 question, because people have been wondering ever since this play was first produced, is Hamlet really crazy? Or is it all putting on an antic disposition? So, Hamlet says at the end of that speech, the play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of a king. Why? He's heard it said, guilty people see something and they go, ah! And that's going to happen. So we get Act 3, Scene 1. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern tell the king and queen what they've seen. And the king tells Gertrude to leave. Line 29, he says, we've sent for Hamlet. Why? So that he, as if by accident, may here affront Ophelia, her father and myself, lawful espials. Why are they lawful spies? Because I'm the king and I can do whatever damn well I want to do. That's why. Okay? We will do what? Bestow ourselves that seeing unseen, we may of their encounter frankly judge. So, we're going to bestow ourselves so that we can see, though we won't be seen. That's another indication they're still somewhere on the stage. Okay? Because the fiction of the tiring house, the building at the back of the stage, is once you go through the door, gone. Okay? So, Ophelia comes in. Polonius says, Ophelia, walk you here, gives her a book here. Pretend to read this. And he says, 'tis much proved that with devotion's visage and pious action we do sugar over the devil himself. And the king's like, that hurt. Why? Because he has, with pious action, been sugaring over the devil himself. So they hear Hamlet coming. The king and Polonius withdraw. And Hamlet enters, and notice, Ophelia pretends to read a book. Well, where is she when she pretends to read that book? She's somewhere on the stage. We don't know exactly where. The stage is like this. hiring house is back here, door, here. Hamlet enters here. Ophelia, for all we know, might be right here. She might be over here. It doesn't matter. The point is, this is not a soliloquy. It is always called the greatest soliloquy in the English language. It's not. A soliloquy always occurs when you have a solo speech. One person on stage. Okay? And if I were directing this, I would have Hamlet come out, maybe looking down at the ground. Why? Because that's his natural disposition. But have him just briefly glance up. And then maybe get a little wry smirk on his face. Or have him raise an eyebrow just a little bit to go, okay, I see what's going on here. To be or not to be? That is the question. To exist or not exist? By the way, Shakespeare, for all we know, he invented that word exist. He was the first person in the English language to use it. Okay? To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Notice I read that all the way through. I didn't pause after suffer because there's no break. Or to take arms against the sea of troubles and by opposing in them. Opening 4-5 lines. What has Hamlet already introduced? What idea? Suicide. To take arms against the sea of troubles and by opposing in them. To end those troubles. To die, to sleep. Why? Because sleep is an image of death. No more. And by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. Notice the first thing he says that flesh is heir to. Heartache. What kind of heartache? She's standing right there reading a book. That kind of heartache. See, I think this speech, when Hamlet comes out and delivers it, it is designed for Ophelia to hear it. He's letting Ophelia know, you hurt me. You hurt me badly. The heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. Consummation. What does consummation mean? Louder? When you get married, you consummate the marriage by sleeping together. Intercourse. That's one. It doesn't mean ending. It means completion. The consummation of the marriage is the completion of the marriage. One of Henry VIII's wives, one of the reasons he claimed, they could have the marriage annulled was the marriage was never consummated. Okay? But he says, this is a consummation devoutly to be wished. What is? Death. Christ's final words in Latin, he didn't speak in Latin, he spoke in Aramaic. Consummatum est. It is finished, but it's not finished. It is complete. I've done everything I came to do. Okay? To die, to sleep. To sleep, and we're back to the nutshell. Perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come. Great movie, by the way. Cuba Gooding Jr., Robin Williams. When we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. Because none of us know, imagine this room, this is life, and that door represents death. We don't have a window that we could go to the edge of death and look through. I mean, yeah, I know there are stories, there are accounts of people who've died and quote unquote come back alive, okay, or come back from death. But almost all of those, what do they say? Quote unquote near death or after death experiences. Is anything really specific? No, it's I saw my body, I was floating away, the doctor was pumping on me, shooting me up with stuff, and I turned and there was a light. And I went off to the light, and then I came back. Hardly ever is anything more than that. There's never, yeah, I went to heaven, I saw Jesus, I talked to Mary, or I went to hell, though in early medieval literature, are accounts of both of those. Somebody goes down to hell, says it's really bad, and I got to come back, and I said, not going there. Dante, So, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. Pause for what? Do I really want to pull the trigger? Because what's the problem of pulling the trigger? No second chance. Should I go there? Do I have time? No, I don't, but I will. I don't know if you've heard about him. Some of you may have. Canadian psychologist, Jordan Peterson. Big book, doing lecture tour all over the world. 80 bazillion views on YouTube and all this kind of stuff. But he's a Canadian psychologist, and he's been going around the world, literally, giving lectures based on this book that he's written, 12 Rules to Live By or something like that. He did a talk in Indianapolis. I read about this initially on Twitter and then some stuff on Facebook. He did a talk in Indianapolis earlier this spring. And at his talks, because he is a good filthy capitalist, you can pay extra money and go up and meet him afterwards and have kind of private like with a group of 20 or 30 people. And you pay like a lot of extra money to do that, okay? So he does his talk and with like 3,000 people in the auditorium. I mean, these things are packed, they're sold out. And he always, in the larger groups, allows people to shoot him a question by email. And he'll sit there, open up his computer, and kind of scroll through and pick a few questions to publicly address. The first one he gets, every now and then I get choked up when I talk about this. The first one he gets, he just sits there for a moment, and he says, I don't know if I should talk about this one. And the lady who described it on Facebook said, you could hear a pin drop in that house of 3,000 people. And he goes, but I will. And so he reads the question. Dr. Peterson, I'm going to commit suicide tomorrow. Tell me why I shouldn't. And it's like, everybody's like, and he pauses for like 3 minutes. And he said, a few things. One, what's the rush? Why rush into it? Give yourself a week. Kill yourself next week. That's the very first response. And he said, second, have you talked to anybody? Do any of your friends, do any of your family know you're thinking about this? Because if you haven't, they might want to. You might not think that you matter, but if you talk, you will find you do. 3, have you talked to a doctor? Either a medical doctor or a psychiatric doctor? Because it sounds like you are suffering from depression, and there are medications that can help with some kinds of depression. Not all, but you might simply be suffering from a chemical imbalance in your mind. You get those chemicals right, and guess what? All those thoughts of darkness and despair go away. And I can't remember what the fourth one was. But he had a fourth one. And then he went on to the other questions. Then he has his private meeting at the end where like 20 or 30 people come up. And they're all sitting around. They bring up chairs and they're all sitting around. And one of the people says, that was my question. And the other people, their eyes get apparently really big and their jaws drop. And he said, and I want you to know I'm going to wait. I will talk to somebody. And so this woman tweeted this. And she then got the guy's name and number, and they kind of went back and forth. And she said, do you mind if I post this on the internet? Because I think this might help some people. And he goes, yeah, sure. And so they started a friendship, and she posted it. And this thing, it just went viral. Okay. Why? Because look at what Peterson said with what Hamlet says here. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. What was Peterson saying? If you commit suicide, if you kill yourself tomorrow, what can you not do the next day? Okay, anything obviously, but what else? Regret. You can't say, damn, that was a stupid thing to do. That was a mistake. But if you put it off 2 days, what can you do? You can think about it a little bit more. Hamlet. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. That is, if you don't go through with it, what might it do? It might make your life what? Calamitous. Is a calamity ever good? No. A calamity is never good. A catastrophe can be good. The word catastrophe solely means a sudden turn. If one of you had been the person to buy the $1.6 billion Powerball lottery ticket, that would have been a catastrophe. Why? Your life would have changed instantaneously. It could have changed for the worse and become a discatastrophe, or it could have changed for the better and become a eucatastrophe. But it would change. Okay? So, there's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. Why? For who would bear the whips and scorns of time? You guys are all young. I'm 50, nearly 57. Every day kind of hurts more than the day before. That's what he's getting at. Time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, that is, the arrogant person's looking down his or her nose at you, the pangs of, and there she is again, the disprized love, right? Because what has Ophelia done with all of his love tokens? She's not accepting them. She hasn't returned them yet. That's going to come up in a moment. Okay? The law's delay, right? Because justice denied is what? Justice delayed is justice denied. The insolence of office, that is, those who have political power and who don't give a rat's you-know-what for those of us who don't. And the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes when what? When he could end it all right now. When he himself might his quietus, his departure, his leave, make with a bare bodkin. Pull the knife out and why would you suffer all those horrible things when you could end it right now? Pretty powerful question, right? Who would fardels, burdens, bear, to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread, this is the problem, of something after death. The undiscovered country from whose bourne, Star Trek title, by the way, no traveler returns. It's that does what? It puzzles the will. Because what is the will? in terms of the three functions of the soul, if you want, that the Greeks thought, the will is what? It's the thing that gets you up out of bed every morning. Even if every morning you're looking at nothing but darkness and blackness, it says, push on. Okay? The thought of this, the undiscovered country, puzzles the will. What does it mean to puzzle something? What's it mean if you're confused, if you're puzzled? It makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others we know not of. Now I said, we don't have a window into death, right? But Hamlet does. What is it? What window has he seen through? The ghost. And what did the ghost tell him he experiences during the day? Fire. I don't know if you've ever been on fire. I have. 3rd-degree burn on my leg. Pain. Just pain. Okay? I can't imagine what the ghost is talking about. Okay? So, that's Hamlet's window. He has seen the ghost. Those are the others we know not of. Thus, conscience does make cowards of us all. Why? And thus the native hue of resolution. What's the native hue of resolution when you really resolve to do something? Give a more practical example. Your car breaks down in the road, and you've got to push it over to the side of the road. What happens to your face? You go red. That's the native hue of resolution. When you are determined to do something. Well, what happens to that native hue? It is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought. And enterprise is of great pitch and moment. That is great ideas, great plans. What happens to them? With this regard, their currents turn awry and lose the name of action. Well, look there. There's Ophelia. I think everything is building to that, but soft you now, the fair Ophelia. Like, golly gee, I didn't know she was there. Wink, wink. Okay, we'll stop there. Hey, we got an act and a half done, or a scene and a half. So we'll pick up with Hamlet talking with Ophelia and being rather cruel.
It's just that slight scene